It's a thrill, though a bit of a melancholy one, to welcome Chancellor Robert Jones from the University of Illinois, soon to be the president of Washington, University of Washington. We'll get to all of that. First off, you're way overdressed for a podcast.
I know. I know. I dressed up for you, man. As long as you see that I'm looking good, that's all that matters.
I always enjoy talking to you. You've said it before. Your words. We're brothers from a different mother.
There you go.
Um, as grandfathers and concerned about the next generation and our grandchildren. Why don't we start with that? You don't know this. I now have three.
Oh,
9-year-old girl, 5-year-old boy, and a 1-year-old girl. All right, you're up. Tell me about yours.
well, we've got five. We have a 27-year-old male, a 21-year-old male, a 15-year-old female, and the boss of all of us is our 4-year-old granddaughter who just turned four about 3 weeks ago. And so that's the crop on our side.
I'm telling you right now, we're not even grading on the curve. You nailed that right off the top of your head.
Yeah, they're wonderful young people, and as you see, there's quite a bit of an age gap, but we love them all, and they're they are the future, and so we hope that we can leave this place better for them than we found it. Right? That's what it's all
Amen to
about.
that. And I feel that's our duty. That's our job. That's what God wants us to do at this point is to make it better. But you are there's no better example than you about what's possible in America and what's great about America and all that can be done. And I know you don't love talking about yourself here, but I'm sorry, it's my show. So we got to
Okay.
do a little background for those who may not be familiar. You grew up where?
I grew up on a peanut and cotton farm in southwestern Georgia, a little town called Dawson, Georgia, Terrell County, or Terrell, depending on what part of the country you grew up in. And my parents were sharecroppers. And so I grew up in the Jim Crow South and was able to have parents that were supportive of me pursuing an education and went to Fort Valley State College in Fort Valley, Georgia, and had a vocational ag teacher in high school that encouraged me to do that, to pursue a degree in agriculture. He started to call me professor in the ninth grade, so I guess it stuck along the way. Subsequently went on to University of Georgia to do a master's, and University of Missouri, Columbia for a PhD. Got my first tenured track position at the University of Minnesota when I was 26 years old, started there in 1978 and left in 2013 to become president of SUNY Albany. Left there in 2016 to become the chancellor of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And the rest is history, as they say.
Well, I know how special the University of Illinois time has been, and we'll get into that as well in just a second. But in asking you to do your resume there, I'm going to throw in a few extra editorial points on my part.
Okay.
We live in a country where anything's possible, but you do have to have a champion, someone who recognizes what's in you, especially as a child.
Right.
And you growing up in the 50s in the South was not easy for an African American boy about to be a man.
Yeah.
And you've told me the story in the past, but tell everybody else there was one person who recognized in you that you had a brain for agriculture, a brain for science, and you had something special. Who was that person?
That was Mr. Walter Stallworth, who was a graduate of Tuskegee Institute, as it was called at the time. And he was the vocational agriculture teacher in my hometown. And he took me on his wing in the ninth grade and basically made sure I did the right things and got involved in the right activities that prepared me to be a leader, like being the chapter president of what was called the NFA, the Negro Farmers of America, which was the counterpart to the FFA. In fact, I was in my senior year when Mr. Stallworth had me to accompany him to the first meeting of the integrated NFA with the FFA, and I attended that first meeting as a delegate from the state of Georgia for the first integrated meeting. And so Mr. Stallworth was very, very clear, very supportive, and made it very clear that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And he pushed me to, I'm surprised he didn't push harder for me to go to Tuskegee. But he was very supportive of me going a little bit closer up to Fort Valley State College, where I really started to cut my teeth and get engaged with another mentor, Mr. Malcolm Blunt, who took me under his wing and basically told me I had to pursue a PhD. And Mr. Blunt was the kind of person you didn't say no to him. You just said, yes, sir, whatever you want me to do, sir.
Sure.
And I can tell you it was critically important in my life that he felt that strongly about me. Had a little bit of rough go at the University of Georgia, but it was where I learned the hard lesson that I would let nobody determine my destiny but me. Did well enough there. I got recruited to join the PhD program of a guy that was my mentor on my PhD program, my advisor, Dr. C.J. Nelson. C.J. is one of my mentors that is still alive today. He retired about 5 years ago. World-class scientist, and he taught me how to be a scientist, and I owe everything to him in terms of my graduate education. Under his tutelage, I did well enough to get my first job offer, actually about a year before, almost a year before I graduated, where I had a chance to either go to the University of Minnesota a year later or to Monsanto's research office in Chesterfield, Missouri. I chose the academic route and I have not regretted it. And
Never look
you're,
back.
huh?
You
That
never
was
had to look
19,
back. You made the right
that,
call. You got to the fork in the road and you picked the right way.
I picked the right way, but again, the mentorship didn't stop there because I was very successful as a bench scientist, had as many as 18 people in my lab, very large sponsored research support from the federal government. And that's why this current situation is really unsettling. But the provost, the guy that was the dean of the College of Education, Dr. Bob Brunix, became the provost. I was the first person he hired. And that was my first entree out of my laboratory to administration. And then when he became the president about 5 years later, he made me the senior vice president for the University of Minnesota system. And I had oversight for probably 60% of the university, including its campuses in Rochester, Crookston, Morris, et cetera, et cetera. So that
No,
put me in a position to become a university president elsewhere.
yeah, and you in the process of getting your PhD, you have a fancy title, a corn scientist of sorts. What is your fancy corn science title?
I was a professor of plant physiology at the University of Minnesota. In my laboratory, I was the corn physiologist. I led the corn physiology research team at the University of Minnesota for 34 and a half years.
And corn physiology was the name of the band I was in when I met you. Um, you know, we've talked about this before too, but I think it's such a cool other part of your life story here. Your background in music, and in specifics, when I was a bit of a noise on the radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul,
Mhm,
you were
mhm.
making all the right noises with Sounds of Blackness, one of the great gospel organizations of all time.
Yeah.
Have you had time at all to sit back and reflect and go, it's a pretty good run and it's far from over?
You know, it's a great run. It was a great run, and it's kind of a road less traveled. Not very many people like me, first of all, go and get degrees in agriculture and run a big major research lab at a predominantly white institution. And then somehow along the way, concurrent with all of that, because I started at Minnesota in 1978. And by January 1980, I got approached about auditioning for this group called the Sounds of Blackness. And I said, the Sounds of what? I had never heard of them before, but they were a choral ensemble that started out probably 20, 25 years before that as McAllister College Black Choir. But when they all graduated, they decided they needed to still perform together and they changed the name to the Sounds of Blackness. We participated in winning choral competitions all over the South in Nashville, Tennessee, Iowa, Decorah, Iowa, Atlanta, Georgia. And then finally, a couple of guys that were proteges of Prince, Jim Harris and Terry Lewis, who Prince fired when they missed a performance in Las Vegas as a part of the world famous group The Time, Morris Day and The Time.
Jungle
And
Love,
yeah, you go.
OEOEO.
We had Morris here last fall. He was great. We had a chance to catch up and
Oh, that's
reminisce
great.
about. But anyway, long story short, I joined the group in 1980, performed locally and regionally and across the country. And then when Jimmy Jam Harris and Terry Lewis started their own record label, Flight Time Records, we were the first group that they signed. And it wasn't just because they've been following us, come to hear us sing. They hadn't thought about starting a record company. They were writing and producing for Janet Jackson. I would say they're the individuals that made Janet Jackson who she is today, because for more than a decade they wrote and recorded all of her music. And they brought her to see, after they finished up her Rhythms Nation album. She said, I'm tired. We've been in the studio all week. I want to hear someone else sing and perform. And she wanted to know what was going on. And so they knew about the fact that the Sounds of Blackness was doing the annual Music for Martin concert at the Ordway Theater in St. Paul. They brought her to see us as she walked into the performance venue dressed in one of those parkas with the big fur
Yes.
around,
Yes.
trying to be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
incognito. And everybody knew who she was because she was with Jimmy Jam and Terry. Anyway, long story short, Jimmy tells the story better than I can, that his right shoulder was sore because all during the concert she was elbowing him, saying, Jimmy, these guys are good. Jimmy, do
Right.
you realize how good these guys are?
Right.
And I think her last comment was, Jimmy, you need to sign them. And they did. They brought her backstage, introduced us to all 20 something of us, and within a month, we had signed a recording contract with them, where we were able to win a couple of gold records, two Grammys, and one platinum record. And I performed with them for 30 years, from 1980 until 2010, when I
What
finally,
what 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 do you do now when people want you to sing? Do you agree?
I say no. I'm very, you know, Steve, I try to make it clear. I'm your chancellor. I'm not here to entertain you.
It's funny. I don't know if I told you there is a comedy club across the river in Minneapolis called the Comedy Cafe.
Yeah, right.
Or I'm sorry, not the Comedy Cafe. What now I'm spacing on the name of it. Comedy Cafe was a different club, but anyway, the point being, Scott Hansen was a guy who owned a bunch of clubs in town. He's kind of the comedy
Yeah,
guy,
yeah, I know him.
and um, I was doing a lot of stand up, and Jimmy was a friend of mine, and Jimmy brought Janet and Terry and the ladies into the club one night. And it was the same deal. She had the parka on, pulled up like she was fooling somebody.
I know.
She was
Well, my laboratory technician was sitting one row away from it, and he told me the next day when I went to the lab, he said, Robert, I don't know who she thought she was fooling. Everybody knew it was her. Nobody bothered her, but
nope,
you walk in with
nope.
Jimmy Jam Harris, everybody knew she was in town recording, which
Sure.
became one of her best albums. That Rhythm Nation thing was huge, as you well know. But that's the untold story of how the small local choral ensemble got a chance to perform at a national and a global stage only because Jimmy Jam and Terry recognized the impact that our music had on her. And like I said, they were writing and producing. They hadn't thought about starting a record label. So in
Right, right, right.
partnership with A&M Records, they started Perspective A&M Records, and we performed under that label for more than a decade. So
In Comedy Gallery, that was what I was spacing on.
Comedy
Comedy
Gallery,
Gallery.
yeah,
That was the
yeah,
name of the clubs. And those are great years. The early 90s, Minneapolis St. Paul was the epicenter of music. And
absolutely.
and people
Yeah.
were coming in, and it wasn't just Prince. It was Morris Day in the time, and it was Janet, obviously, and a
Yep.
lot more. It's about inspiration.
Alexander
And
also good O'Neill. Remember him? Alexander
oh, are
O'Neill?
you kidding? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're a fake.
He was part of the time for a short period of time. He got
Yeah,
kicked
he
out.
was, and he was tremendous.
Great
All
boy.
right, so inspiration is key to all parts of your life, whether you were being inspired or you were part of a group inspiring others, and that's been your career. And now you're educating and inspiring others. You're going to move on to the University of Washington, and I know you're going to be a huge star there, as you have everywhere you've been, and you're going to
Thank
change
you.
lives. But the news of the day, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but there's a balance that has to be struck right now between major institutions like the University of Illinois, University of Washington, all over the country, and politics.
Yes.
Politics has stuck its head in a place that has created more problems. You talked about the research. You talked about the importance of research. We know it from medical ends. Certainly, our food supply, it's vitally important, but it's also the fairness of giving you, an African American kid in the 50s, a shot to achieve his dreams, and the fairness of doing the same for others. Now, as a president of the University of Washington, you're taking on a big balance of that as well. I know you talk to others that do what you do, but boy, I don't envy you. I don't envy you trying to figure out how to walk this tightrope.
Well, it is going to be extremely difficult. I can tell you, myself and my team, not only locally but national organizations that I'm a part of, the Association of American Universities, Association of Public and Land Grant University, create a coalition that's trying to diminish the impact that some of these executive orders are having not only on our bottom line, but the most important thing here, Steve, is if you have a strategy by which you're trying to correct a perceived wrong that universities are perpetuating by taking the core funding away from them is kind of the epitome of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you
Right.
will, for lack of a better term, because these universities have had a partnership with the federal government as partners. Federal government has an obligation to invest in the innovation that is necessary to keep this nation the most innovative and competitive place in the world. It's a position that we've occupied for a long time. My biggest fear is that these actions that are being taken now will not only will have short-term pain in terms of taking resources away, but it's starting to impact the number of students that will be able to come here from other countries to study, the number of students that we'll be able to support for graduate and professional degrees, who will be the next generation of plant physiologists and animal scientists, cancer researchers that are going to find the next cure for diseases, create new drugs, using AI to improve the quality of healthcare. All of that is at risk. We're at risk of losing all of that because when you start taking hundreds of millions of dollars away from these institutions, it's not something that you can flip or switch back on, say, a year from now or 6 months from now, and it just springs back to where it was. It will be disrupted for decades to come. I'm
And I
talking
can tell
about.
you, and this is my words, not yours, but from a political standpoint, and the members of Congress that I know who are doing it right and those that are hiding, when the public says, I'm not voting for you, I'm not putting up with it, I'm not voting for you, you need to pay attention to this, you need to support that. I would
Yeah.
highly encourage, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but highly encourage folks to contact their elected representatives in the House, in the Senate, and to say, I want you to support the young minds of America to be as good as they can be for the rest of us going forward. And if you don't, I'm not going to support you.
Yeah, because that's a non-political statement. And whether you're
Right.
Democrat, Republican, red state, blue state, purple state, we all should be very concerned about disruption of an ecosystem that has made us the envy of the rest of the world because we've invested in smart minds and making sure they can get an amazing education at an affordable price and go on to be those researchers and innovators that change how medicine is practiced and how it's taught, to change how innovation is put on the table that has created jobs in this decade that didn't exist a decade ago.
Right.
That
Right.
didn't that only happened because of our educational system and the partnership that we have with the federal government that has a responsibility for the taxes that they collect from each and every one of us to invest in the next generations of citizens that some of whom have not even been born yet to make sure they have an amazing quality of life and they live in one of the most innovative places on the planet. And all of that, folks, regardless of your politics, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent, or none of those, has anything to do with what's happening now. It is one of the most scariest points in the history of this nation and the history of higher education. I can't
Yeah.
state it anymore.
Yes.
It's
And in the process of all of that, you are about to take on a big new job. And I know it's not going to be easy to leave Illinois because I know how much
yeah.
you've loved it here. But I learned something. I learned something, my friend, this
Uh-oh.
morning from our mutual friend, Andrea Darlis. And in the interest of your schedule, I'm going to bring Andrea in here to take a bow herself. And in the interest of your timing and your schedule, just to let you know that I was under a misguided notion as well. And this is good news from the University of Illinois. I don't know that it applies everywhere, but I'm looking at a statistic.
Hey, Audrey.
90% of University of Illinois graduates got a job before they graduated last year. I learned that from Andrea this morning, Chancellor.
Yes, within 6 months of graduating, 90% of our students already had found what we call their first destination, whether that's a job, graduate school, or an internship program. And that is huge. But I can tell you that's another example of what's at risk here, Steve, with some of the craziness that's going on now. But yeah, that's something we're very proud of. We just released those numbers, I think, yesterday, I believe. So we're very proud of that. And we won't be happy until it's 95%.
And Andrea, you've also spoken to me about what the chancellor has done, what the school has done, University of Illinois has done in regards to the leap in quantum studies
Oh my
in
God.
the quantum campus in Illinois. Andrea, how do you set that up with the chancellor?
Well, I know this is perhaps one, and I really mean this one, and I can say this because he's leaving us now, but one of the many, many, many things that the chancellor is going to solidify as his legacy at the University of Illinois, not just at the U of I, but for the city of Chicago and for the entire state of Illinois. Chancellor Jones was talking about quantum. I think it was at least 3 or 4 years ago, right, Chancellor? Maybe more. And
Yes.
I, along with half the world, said, "I'm sorry, what's quantum?" So he gave us the quickie 411 explanation, and he said, "You're going to be hearing a lot about this in the years to come." We thought, okay, cool, this is going to be great. Boy, Illinois is just leading the world, not just the state and the city and the nation, Steve, but because Chancellor Jones said, we want this, we want to be a part of this, we want to be a title partner with this. So, Chicago Quantum Microelectronic Park, there would be no CQ MEP without the University of Illinois.
I
And I
assume
remember all these discussions with the chancellor saying, hey, let's have this in Chicago. Let's be a part of this. We're a partner with this. And now it came to fruition. We took a dormant spot in South Shore and are literally revitalizing that neighborhood. We're having an event where we can explain to Chicago and the entire state of Illinois. Chancellor Jones is going to be speaking at the event, giving the opening remarks too,
you're
with
talking about
all
the
of our
Lincoln Forum
panelists.
event, the
Yeah,
Lincoln Forum
that's
event on
that's
May
the Lincoln
6th.
Forum event. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
in
and you can
May.
go to Lincoln Forum. Just Google up Lincoln Forum or University of Illinois Quantum Lincoln Forum, and you can register right online. You know, of the many things you ought to be proud of, Chancellor, I hope this is one of them.
Absolutely, because I can tell you one of the things I'm very proud of, and Governor Pritzker has been a tremendous partner. And this was about a year and a half ago. He spoke at the Board of Trustee meeting and he said unequivocally that the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign has been able to do something no other university has done before. And what he was alluding to is what we now call these radical collaborations. Yeah, we compete against Northwestern and Chicago for the best and the brightest faculty and students. But the mindset is that in addition to competing, we got to collaborate very seamlessly because most of the world problems are too large and too complex for any one university, even as great as Illinois is, with some of the brightest minds in the world. The complexity around something like quantum computing, for example, is too large for us to solve the problem by ourselves. And lest we forget, there are a few other nations that want to be the one to win this race
Right.
because whoever wins it is going to control everything from medicine interventions to encryption related to commerce activities, cybersecurity, the whole nine. It's going to control everything. So it's a lot at risk here. And for the governor to put that kind of trust in asking University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign to lead this initiative and do what we already do, partner seamlessly with the University of Chicago and Northwestern to create something that is unlike anything else in the world, definitely in the country that we know of. 500, more than 500. The state put in 500. DARPA, Department of Defense, put in 148 million to create something called the Quantum Proving Ground. So this thing called Illinois Quantum and Microelectronic Park, located on 120 acres of the old U.S. Steel site, will go down in history as another big life-changing, innovation-changing strategy that this university has played a leadership role in with others. And with others is the key here, Steve, because we can't do this by ourselves. It
Right.
creates a whole ecosystem that not only involves those three universities, but the federal labs, Fermi Lab and Oregon National Laboratory, IIT is involved, the city colleges are involved, as well as Chicago State University. So this is a
With
big,
record-breaking enrollment as well, and the thousands and
yep.
thousands of kids at Illinois that you've crossed paths with in your years here. Think about parents and grandparents of high schoolers right now who are hoping to send their kids to the University of Illinois or whatever university they hope to send them to. Where does the role come in, or who has the main job responsibility to keep these kids upbeat, to believe in their own future, and to chase their own dreams? Because these are tough days, and it would be easy for a kid to go, "I can't beat the system. The system's broken. Why am I going to go try?" I hope that's not very many kids, but what do you say to parents or grandparents to tell them you got to talk to your kids and tell them this?
Well, I would say to them, keep doing what you're doing because, Steve, I can tell you, we've had record applications every year for the last 5 years in particular. And we've had record acceptances of our offer to students. So notwithstanding all of what's going on, everybody knows, a large percentage of the population understands that the University of Illinois can offer you an amazing education at an affordable price, and you will have a very, you have, you will, if you enroll here, you will graduate. 88% of our students graduate within 6 years.
That's
88%.
There
Yeah.
it is.
So
I mean, there's your number.
one
Now,
of the highest in the country.
yeah, in going to the University of Washington, the obvious question here is, you love it here, but you're leaving. Is it something Andrea said?
No, it was actually something you said, Stephen. I will never get over it as long as I live.
That's right. You're the
Now
best.
that'll teach you. That'll teach you from asking such a question.
You know what? I should never come up that road because I know you're going to smack me. Um, I'm excited for your future as well. What do you do when you go to the University of Washington? What are you going to take from the University of Illinois? Maybe it's something even after all these years you didn't know when you got here, and something that really embedded in you that you said, "I'm going to bring this to the University of Washington." Whether it's a thought, program, an idea, is there something like that?
Well, what I've learned is the importance of being a student-focused leader. Because if anything, I tell you, that is part of the perception of how successful I've been is the fact that I stopped to engage with our students and our staff. I've taken more selfies than any other university president or chancellor in modern times. And I care greatly about every member of our university community, and I respect them. And we've created an environment where they are proud of the fact they know who the chancellor is. I was just went over to Starbucks to get a cup of citrus mint tea, and that was one of our tour guides that I know quite well. She stopped the tour to take a selfie with me and just yell out to the folks, "This is our chancellor. We love him. We love him." And tell me how many times does that happen on your average university campus? So I learned the importance of being engaged on campus and off campus, because the other gratifying thing is that people in the community come up to me, people I never met before, and thank me for creating a seamless connection between this university and the communities of Urbana-Champaign. And we're doing the same thing in East St. Louis with Jackie John and Kersey. And so those are some of the things that I take away that are fundamentally important. And so I just think that those are some life lessons and hopefully some skills that I can take, because I've only been on the campus a couple of times now. And I've already taken more selfies in just a few hours on campus than I thought, because people know about me, they know about how I've led Illinois, and they're expecting the same kind of respectful and innovative leadership that I've tried to bring to the table here over the last 9 years.
Now, Andrea, you've talked to me about what the administration side, where you are at the University of Illinois, have said about how much they're going to miss Chancellor Jones. But like the encounter you had at the coffee shop today, and you didn't say, by the way, if anybody offered to pick up the cost of your coffee, but that's okay. I would have bought it for you. But for those that you've come across, is there a kid that said something to you? I know you keep hearing, I'm going to miss you, I'm going to miss you. But is there a kid that said something to you that really stuck with you or maybe caused you to choke up even?
You know, I it goes without saying that I've never worked for anybody like Chancellor Jones in my entire life. And I mean that in the most positive way, because what he what you see is what you get. He is not the committee of no, which is the best thing about working for him, is that you bring him an idea, he says he'll never shut you down. He'll say, let's do it. Someone brought him an idea saying, hey, why don't we have a medical school on campus? Boom, we have a college of medicine now. Let's reinvent our website and make it everything, and merge
So
departments.
it doesn't have to be one thing. It's just the overall impact that he's had on not just the kids, but on you guys in the administrative side as well. But
Oh,
Chancellor Jones, is there nobody that's come up to you and said, "Hey, when I'm in Washington, could you maybe, put me up for a week?"
we're
No,
still trying to keep
Stephen,
him from going.
no, it's gone more than just a week. Some people say, "Take me with you, take me with you," but I said, "No, I'm not going to take anybody away from this great institution, unless you can convince folks out there otherwise."
Yeah,
He is the best.
I
He is the best orange and blue wardrobe too, by the way. Best orange and blue ties and pocket squares, and that's those selfie moments, Steve. Those carry into Chicago. We always have to make the chancellor's appointments at least 20 to 30 minutes earlier, because you can't walk from one side of City Hall to the other, or one side of the county building to the other, without somebody stopping. And these are big names, Steve. These are aldermen. These are state lawmakers. These are people who want to take a selfie. So he's going to be missed not only on campus, but in the city of Chicago and throughout the
sure.
state of Illinois. And we love you so much.
I know you have to run, Chancellor Jones,
Yeah,
but
I do,
I'm going to
unfortunately.
miss you personally, and I thank you for the work you've done here and the work you have ahead of you. I respect what you've done, and your friendship means a lot to me. If there's anything I can do for you, can't imagine what it is, but if there's anything I can do for you, maybe help you move, let me know.
Well, you can help me pack, but above that, Steve, I really am sincere. You've got to let me know when you're in the area. We are welcome
Right.
at any time. And I just thank for all that you've done from your platform to help make the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois a better place. And we're both transplants from Minnesota, but we've done all right for ourselves here in the land of Lincoln.
God bless you, my friend. Safe
Thank
travels.
you.
My best to your family.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.